Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome back to Hoops with Noops. I, of course, am Noops, better known as Alex Christensen, better known as Noops, whichever you prefer. I personally couldn't care. Of course, you can find all my work on twitter.com at _Noops. I write Hoops for Noops for the folks at FTN Bets here 4 days a week. That's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And Monday and Fridays, you get these video previews as well. Really appreciate your support. Be sure you're subscribing to the station here on the YouTube channel down there at the bottom. Ring the bell. Also appreciate a thumbs up and drop a comment. Let us know how we're doing. Is there anything else that you'd like to hear? Any numbers that maybe I'm not mentioning to be interesting in? Any other angles I could be covering? Appreciate all the feedback and really appreciate, again, all you guys watching and all your support. Let's jump into tonight's slate. It is the in-season tournament again tonight. We've got 11 games that all decide who has a chance at the extra paycheck and the championship game in Las Vegas. And I must say at this point, I'm not surprised that the league that brought us the finals and the play-in tournament couldn't have been more creative here, but there's got to be a better name for this thing. So while you're down in the bottom writing some comments, leave us some of your thoughts on what the best name for this tournament should be. I'm not quite sure what the attitude of the in-season tournament is. I'll try to think of some, and maybe we'll share some of the answers later on down the road. But hopefully we can come up with something more creative than this. But it has been fun. The games have been great. The courts have been gaudy but interesting, and at the very least, I guess we're talking about them. And as I've said kind of this entire time, we have regular season basketball games in November that are suddenly more interesting to watch. The level of competition has been higher. There hasn't been really much, if any, rest shenanigans. I think so far all the players that have been held out have been for real true injuries and not rest management again, stuff like that. So it's been fun. And as we continue to track some of the betting stats so far, I know last time we talked about this, we talked about how overs were doing so well. Let's come back to earth a little bit. Overs are still doing well. Let me just double check. Overs 15 and 11 so far. So you're up a couple units if you just blindly bet the overs on these games. And that makes sense. I think what you're seeing is teams pushing harder at the end of the game because the point differential matters, more possessions, more points. But the market, I think, is catching up on that. What is a little surprising, and I'm looking at it again right now to double check, underdogs are 8-1 against the spread. You're up a little over 7 units if you bet basically every underdog at a price of -110 on the closing number. So a pretty surprising number there. Again, very small sample size. And I'm sorry, home underdogs. If I didn't say that before, I want to make sure that's clear. Home underdogs are 8-1. That's just 9 games. We'll see how that goes. If it sticks out, there's a lot of home underdogs tonight. I didn't find myself really backing any of them, but something to keep an eye on as we move forward. Is there a correction on that number? Are we going to see 8-8 in the coming weeks, or are we going to continue to see that happen? If we get to the point where it's like 14-2, something in that range, maybe that might be a big enough sample size when we start to look at these almost blindly. But again, that's a long way down the road. So we'll keep tracking that. And let's jump into, I've got 4 games I want to talk about tonight. And then I'll quickly try to touch on all the other games, just give you kind of a few thoughts and maybe why I'm not betting it. First game up here, the New York Knickerbockers head to Washington to play the Wizards. The Wizards 7-point underdogs here, the total at 227. And pulling that right off the FTN odds board, which is one of the great things you get for signing up for the FTN basketball package. You can see down there in the ticker below, there's a little code to get you a discount. A lot of great tools there, not only just the odds board, but that's one of them. And where really I pull all my numbers from. This is an interesting matchup where you've got a Knicks team. It's the first night of a back-to-back, already their 4th back-to-back this season. The schedule not too friendly, but probably better to get these out of the way and go up against one of the worst teams in the NBA. And one of the hardest parts about being a handicapper, one of the best ways to find an advantage is to look for things that really aren't built into the market. Might be hard for algorithms or bookmakers really to understand. And one of the things I think has been a really nice angle for the last couple seasons, and has been in years past for Tom Thibodeau teams, but especially these Knicks teams they are so good against some of the worst teams in the league. They generally really beat up on poor competition. They don't play down to their level, either really put up a big number and kind of blow these teams out. We've seen them beat a couple of these teams by 15 plus points already this season and lock them down defensively. And that's really what I'm expecting here tonight. My play in this game is going to be a Wizards team total under 110.5. I love this matchup for the Knicks. I think it's a really great spot for them. No real scheduling problems. Again, it's an in-season tournament game, so we should see everybody doing their best, playing their hardest basketball. And that means really great defense. That means a team in the Knicks that has depth, that has length, that can really slow down a Wizards team that is having just about the worst season of anybody. This team is really poor. And even when Jordan Poole is not screwing around and trying to do all sorts of goofy things that I'm sure you've seen all over the internet at this point, they really struggle to score. They've put up some big numbers, but those are really fast-paced games that got out of hand, and we're looking at blowouts, and I don't think that's what we're looking at tonight. Again, it might be a blowout for New York, but they generally don't do that in a fast-paced game, especially with a game on tap for tomorrow. It's too much to ask of those guys to play that way 2 nights in a row. Now, Thibodeau does it more often than not. We'll probably end up going against the Knicks tomorrow night. They've been really poor in the second half of those back-to-backs, but tonight I'm expecting a really strong defensive effort against one of the worst rosters in the NBA and one of the worst offensive teams. So, well, from an efficiency standpoint, again, score a lot of points because they play fast, but the efficiency just isn't there. 110.5 is at least 2.5 points too high for me. So, gonna take the under there. Again, Wizards team total under, you can see down there on the bottom from our friends at FanDuel. Let's jump into another Eastern Conference game, an Atlantic Division matchup between the Boston Celtics and the Toronto Raptors. It will be the second of the 4 games they play this season and the second time they played each other in about a week. These are teams that, again, in the same division, play each other 4 times a year. These games can be really ugly because these teams know each other. They know what the tendencies are. They know how to slow each other down. And generally, it's a Raptors game. Raptors games have been really rough this year. Really good under team, a team with really good defense. They struggle on offense. They play a slow pace of basketball. And they're home tonight, which generally helps a little bit control how things are going to go. For the Celtics, big problems on the injury report tonight. Kristaps Porzingis is questionable, as is Jaylen Brown. Those are 2 of their most important pieces on offense. Kristaps Porzingis especially has been great, helping spread the floor and provide an element of offense that Boston hasn't had in years past. Without those 2 players tonight, this total is just far too high. Again, you can see at the bottom here, the Raptors 8-point underdogs, a total at 224. Without both of these guys, I have this closer to like 216. With both of them in, I'm looking at something in the 221 to 222 range. So again, even an edge there. If we're lucky enough to be missing both of these guys, this is going to be a really ugly game. Both teams match up very well. Long athletic players on both sides of the floor. Obviously, we know Boston is one of the best defensive teams in the league. Derek White and Drew Holiday are a really scary defensive guard tandem. Lots of big athletic guys behind them. And you look at this Toronto team, again, full of long, athletic, willing defenders that play a really good style of defense. They've been one of the better defensive teams in the NBA for a couple seasons. And to no surprise, I think that tonight is going to be a really rough basketball game. We've seen these games fly under between these 2 teams in the past. And again, with some of these injuries here on tap, 224 is a huge number. So happy to go under that. And I know it's tough betting all these unders, and we've got one more, but just a lot of spots, a couple spots tonight where I look at it and I struggle to see how offense is going to be created. Again, without some of these guys on Boston, there's going to be a lot of focus on Tatum defensively, and I don't know what the guys around him can really do to get the buckets they need to push this over. Conversely, for Toronto, I'm struggling to see how Toronto scores much at all. I thought maybe about a Toronto team total under here, but the full game looked better. So we'll go under 224 in the Boston Celtics Toronto Raptors game tonight. Next up, the Detroit Pistons at the Cleveland Cavaliers. A really kind of messy game here. Detroit sporting one of the worst shooting starting 5s in the NBA with Killian Hayes, Cade Cunningham, Asar Thompson, Isaiah Stewart, and now Marvin Bagley with Jalen Duran out. Again, no Bojan Bogdanovic. There is just no space on the floor for these guys to operate. And tonight is not going to be much better as they go to Cleveland, where the Cavaliers are 9-point favorites. The total sits at 220. A couple injuries for Cleveland. They might be without Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. Both are questionable. My guess is that one plays. There's a good chance Cleveland can cover a big spread like this, but in the off chance that both of these guys are going to miss tonight, the angle I like best here is another team total under, but this time for the Pistons at 105.5. Again, already talked about how bad of a shooting lineup that is, and they go up tonight against one of the best defensive teams in the NBA in Cleveland that has Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, 2 premier rim protectors and defenders on the floor at all times. They're going to be packed into the lane because, again, no one is there to draw them out above the arc. There is not shooters there. There is just nothing pulling these guys away from the basket. Cade Cunningham is going to struggle as he attacks the rim, as are all of these guys. I mean, it's just kind of a mess of a basketball game. So this is one I'm definitely not going to be watching, but I really like this team total under here. Again, the Pistons, one of the worst offenses in the NBA from a talent perspective, especially given who's missing tonight. One of the best defenses in the NBA in Cleveland. It's almost that simple. My numbers came out with 102, tweaked them up a little bit when I was so far under market, but couldn't even really get them to 103. So this is a nice edge here at 105.5. Should be a tough night for the Pistons on the road in Cleveland, again, against Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley, and a really nice defensive team. The fourth game I'm betting tonight, and this is another game that it's just, there's a lot of basketball on tonight. I'm not going to be watching this because the Chicago Bulls, it may finally be over after, what is now the fourth season in a row with this starting lineup and this kind of this core three, if you will, of Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola Vucevic, has never had a winning record. They made the postseason, got blown out in the first round one time, but again, never had a winning record at the end of the season. They are struggling this year, and it seems that Zach LaVine is available for trade, although I expect most teams to be making calls asking about DeMar DeRozan, asking about Alex Caruso. Those are much more important pieces, but with all that looming over their head, they have to play the Orlando Magic for the second time in a row. They did beat the Magic last game, 96-94. What a mess of a basketball game that was. To maybe put it in context a little bit, and I want to double check. I put this in the written version of Hoops with Noops. Again, if you want to read this, and again, there's always a couple little more things in there and some more numbers and things that I can't quite share as comfortably here in video. But the night they last played, again, 96-94 was the final score. On that same night, we had 4 teams that had scored 96 or more points by the end of the third quarter. There were 2 more teams that scored 94 and 95 points apiece through 3 quarters. That's 6 teams that would have, through 3 quarters, been very close, if not won this game, if you just kind of count the points there. It's just a mess. Now, what that means is a lot of missed shots, and we are back with Franz Wagner. Overs. I don't care that he lost the last game. For the first time in 6 games, he finally didn't have 5 rebounds. The market here adjusted back a little bit, which is nice. It gives us another spot tonight to come in and pick up some real value. 6+ rebounds is plus 135 at FanDuel. 8+ rebounds is plus 500 at DraftKings. Again, you can see we'll split up the unit there a little bit on the bigger play so that we have a little bit of a better outcome if it does go all the way. Worst case, we make a nice chunk if he gets to that 6+ number there. And it's pretty simple here. The Magic without Wendell Carter Jr. really lack a lot of big men. Gogo Bagats, I believe that's how you say that. Apologies if I messed that up. It's kind of a tough name, is the starting center without Wendell Carter Jr. And Banchero is a little more of an offensive player. We had been betting his rebounds over, but that market seems to have stabilized. Whereas, again, these Wagner numbers just look too low to me. And I know, again, in 30 minutes in the last game, he did not get even half of 6 rebounds. I think he ended up with 2, maybe 3 there. Is a tough situation. I expected to bounce back tonight. He is really the guy that they asked to come over to play a bigger role underneath the basket and trying to clean the boards tonight. So really like that look there. Some of the other games, what I'm calling not for Noops. These games might be for you, but they're not for me. And I'm Noops, so not for Noops. Let's go through. There are 7 other games here on the slate quickly. The Milwaukee Bucks are 7.5-point favorites in Charlotte tonight. This one is simple. We don't know if Giannis Antetokounmpo is playing. We can't bet. He is questionable tonight. If he is out, I think this is still a nice spot to go in and bet an over. We saw what Damian Lillard did the other night without Antetokounmpo, really having the ball to himself. You could see kind of that, Dame that we saw in Portland. So might bet it over there, maybe a Bucks team total over, something against a Hornets defense that has really been poor this year in a game that should be played at a fast pace. But until we know what's happening with Giannis, no bets to be made. The Philadelphia 76ers visit the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks are 1-point favorites, and similar to the last game, we can't bet it until we know what's happening with one of the star players, in this case, Joel Embiid. He's listed as questionable. It is an in-season tournament game, so I think maybe they'll push him to play. If they do, I think this line will flip, and you'll see the Sixers close as small favorites. Not the best rest spot for them tonight. And Atlanta has been a tough matchup for them historically in the past. But if Embiid is out, I'm going to be looking to bet overs here. Tobias Harris props have been really nice towards the over when Embiid is out. He picks up the rebounding, picks up his scoring, so we'll look towards that. And maybe some Tyrese Maxey overs as well. Again, as part of that subscription to the FTN basketball platform, I believe you get access to the FTN Discord. There's an NBA Plays channel in there where I'll drop any of those props as soon as I know who's playing in these last couple games. So not for Noops now, maybe for Noops later. So keep an eye on that. The third game up here, I'm don't believe I'm wagering on really no matter what happens here is Sacramento Kings at the San Antonio Spurs. The Kings are back. All they needed was De'Aaron Fox, apparently. They are scoring the ball in bunches. They're 8.5-point favorites with a total of 238 on the road. I expected to come in here and want to bet an over, but my numbers actually like the under a little bit here. A bit of a look-ahead spot for Sacramento. The Spurs offense has really struggled in the last couple of weeks, especially as their pace has slowed down. So no plays for me here in that game. The Denver Nuggets visit the New Orleans Pelicans. The Pelicans at home is 5-point underdogs, the total at 225. Again, all my numbers here came out pretty close to market. This is tough to figure out, this New Orleans team who's missing guards, but at the same time, Denver without Jamal Murray does not have a lot of talent in the backcourt right now. We'll probably end up looking at some Nikola Jokic props, but I'm not quite sure yet. Again, I want to see kind of the injury report shakes out here a little bit. This is the first game of a back-to-back for the Pelicans, so I imagine everyone's playing. So might have some Jokic props. Again, we'll put that in the FTN Bets Discord if you're in there. Be sure to look for that later. The Los Angeles Lakers, 8.5-point favorites in Portland, the total 223.5. The putrid Portland Trailblazers lineup is just awful without Simons, without Scoot Henderson, without Brogdon, which, again, we should see tonight. That team has really been poor, but hard to know what the Lakers are going to do. Anthony Davis is probable. Again, I expect him to play. LeBron James is questionable. Maybe they sit him, but with the in-season tournament angle, again, maybe he plays there tonight. If everyone's in for the Lakers, might go back and look at a Portland Trailblazers team total under, but those numbers all look pretty solid. Even if I assume everyone for LA is in, it's only maybe a 1.5-point edge to that team total under, so we'll probably pass there. And then the second to last game. Sorry. The Phoenix Suns at the Utah Jazz. I was ready to bet a Suns team total over. The market saw me coming and set it at 121.5. Even without Bradley Beal, the Suns offense is capable of really just going supernova at any particular point and putting up a big number. We were lucky enough to get 115 the other night. They have now adjusted it up 6.5 points. So can't really do much there. If you wanted to, again, play a Suns team total over, I think it's just blindly a good look, but I don't see any value in this number. The Houston Rockets are 7.5-point underdogs at the Los Angeles Clippers, and it's two tough angles. The first angle, of course, being just bet against the Clippers anytime James Harden is playing. They have really struggled, and it just doesn't look like it's making any sense there. However, this will be the first road game for the Houston Rockets since October 27th. Yes, they have been home for over 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks of home basketball. It's tough to adjust to being on the road there, especially Los Angeles, a city a lot of the players really like to visit. Now, this Rockets team has been a lot more professional this year, and I expect them to play great basketball, but the numbers look pretty good here. The Clippers have actually been bet. This number opened closer to Rockets at 5.5, so the market likes a spot for the Clippers as well. I'm happy to stay away because, again, I'm just betting against the Clippers as long as they have James Harden or nothing. That's all I've got. Let me go through again my 4 plays, and of course, you can read all these and catch them there on the written version of Hoops with Noops at FTN Bets. But quickly here, in the Knicks Wizards game, give me a Wizards team total under 110.5. In the Celtics Raptors game, give me a Celtics Raptors, the full game total there under 224. Really like that quite a bit, especially if Porzingis is out. Detroit Pistons, their team total under 105.5. You can find that at MGM. And we're back on the Franz Wagner rebound train, 6+ at plus 135 for about 3/4 of a unit, and then 1/4 of a unit at plus 500. That's 8+ rebounds at DraftKings. Again, some really fun bets for us. Thanks so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Again, be sure to go down, ring the bell, give me a thumbs up, drop a comment with your name suggestion for the in-season tournament, and maybe we can figure it out here and help the NBA from having yet another boringly named tournament. Again, the league that brings you the NBA Finals and play-in tournament brings you the in-season tournament. We have to be able to do better, folks. But best of luck. Have a great weekend, and I'll be back on Monday with more Hoops with Noops.